We can't hear you back here.
Yeah. If your phone's on, please have it on silent. The exits, there's an exit out that door you came in. There's also an emergency exit out this door over here. The bathroom, if you take a left out of the door, go through those double doors, there's a bathroom on your left. It is a family bathroom, so lock the door behind you when you go in, okay? So I'll introduce myself. I'm April Wilson. I'm the County Public Information Officer. I help set up meetings and try to provide information for everybody. Tonight we're going to be going over a very hot topic. There are cards on the table with pens. Those are for your questions. You have to remember, with an audience this big, you're going to have a lot of individual questions. So your individual personal circumstance may not get addressed in the questions. But we do have our DSA team with FEMA here that can also help with your individual cases. So just keep that in mind when we go through everything. But the cards, write them down. I'll collect them when we're about done, and then we'll address as many as we can. There is a time limit. It's 30 minutes for the Q&A. Because like I said, we gotta honor everybody's time. I really appreciate you all being here. This is the biggest turnout that we've had for some of our meetings, and I know a lot of you. So, like Bucky in the back, that's my cousin. Jen, I go to church with you guys. So, this is personal to me because I grew up in Ball Mountain. And Danny, you know, I know a lot of you, Nicole. We might not get everything answered tonight, but that doesn't mean we're not going to try. Okay? We're trying to look at resources that aren't typical. We're trying to be creative with how we can solve these problems. This is something we've never had to face before. But our county's already pulled together to come way further than they thought we would be right now. So I just want to take the time to thank you all for that. So give yourselves a hand of applause. All of you are not important to me. You know, I've just always been proud to be here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole. She's going to go over the FEMA individual assistance to try to give you guys some clarity on what the individual assistance looks like. If you haven't applied for FEMA yet, it's going to help you know where to walk through. Remember, the deadline to apply for FEMA is January the 7th. You've got to get your applications in by January 7th, okay? That's highly important that you get that done. All right, so Nicole, I'll turn it over to you.
Louder, Nicole.
Hi, can you hear me? I have been with FEMA for 16 years, and
Louder.
I do want to stress that we are here to help you. We do request that you register for one. Our 800 number, let me get it out just in case. Our 1-800 number is 800-13362 for those who do not have our helpline number. Also, FEMA addresses two major items, which is our housing assistance and our other needs program. Under the housing assistance, that will consist of the structural for the dwelling. Also, that is under the umbrella of home care. Home care also addresses the private roads, which is your driveways, things of that nature that got damaged. As far as the insurable items, we will address wells, septic tanks, and furnaces. So if you did have issues with your HVAC system or that is not addressed, you can appeal and submit your estimates for the HVAC. Can you hear me now? Because it's in my throat. Also, in reference to the roads and the
You got, if you'll just, yeah, it's going around, so just take a picture if you've got your phone, and if you'll go to the FEMA website, you can navigate to get that, because it's on there too.
Thanks, Nicole. Am I loud enough? Good to go? Thank you. So, my name is Fred Dolan. I'm with FEMA. I'm what we call the Intergovernmental Affairs Specialist. I've been assigned to Yancey County for 2 months. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the partnership. Thank you for the conversations. Thank you for the amazing football over the last 2 months. Thank you for playing in 14-degree weather. That's the first time I've ever done that. Had a lot of good conversations and some wonderful conversations with the people in this community over the last 2 months. I want to thank you and the leadership of the county for the partnership. Just want to highlight on the private roads and bridges. There are over 4,000 individuals in this county who have applied and are receiving individual assistance. Over $14 million has come into the county through that individual assistance program. I can tell you 57% of the folks, 57% of the folks who registered did so online. That form is a little confusing. So if you tell me that my home also equates to my road or my bridge, I'm not sure I'm going to understand that, right? So it's really important if you have registered for individual assistance and you haven't updated your case in a while, you're not sure that you indicated you had damage to your road or bridge, please come to the Disaster Recovery Center, which is located next to Fred's. It's open Monday through Friday from 8 to 6, and on Saturdays from 9 to 2, and sit down with a person. We've got our disaster survivor assistance team. There's 2 guys over here in the corner. They can talk with you. But go over there and sit down and have a face-to-face chat, okay? The disaster assistance deadline was mentioned earlier, January 7th. At some point, that disaster recovery center will close, and then you're going to be on an 800 number. And I would rather sit across from a human being and ask questions. If you got a letter from FEMA and you're not sure about it, take it to the DRC, and they will sit down and they will work with you on that. If you have to upload paperwork, insurance, or a contractor's estimate, please take it to the DRC if you can, and they'll work with you on that. The other program that FEMA has is called public assistance, and that is where they reimburse the municipal governments, such as the county or the town, for the work that they're doing as a result of the disaster. And so the private roads and bridges is a really kind of a complex issue. So in theory, you could address your road or bridge with individual assistance. There's also a potential option to address it with public assistance. So the focus on public assistance is getting emergency access back to your home across the bridge. Can we get an ambulance? Can we get a fire engine? Can we get a police car? And I'm not talking about driving through the creek, and I'm not talking about walking over 4x4s. We're talking about getting a fire engine across the bridge. And so when you hear this about FEMA and private roads and bridges, keep in mind there's 2 programs. The individual assistance side of the house, where you're talking about a permanent solution, and the public assistance side of the house, where the community and where the county is trying to restore emergency access to your locations. So Chris is going to talk a little bit more about the situation there, on the kind of tied to the public assistance side. And there's another option here too. It's not just FEMA and it's not just the county. There's a ton of nonprofit organizations in the community working and doing some amazing work, and some of that is tied to the private roads and bridges. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris, but one more time, I just want to thank the folks here in the county. It's been a pleasure. And I'll be around all night, so feel free to grab me by the neck and we can have a conversation if you want to. So thank you.
Hey guys, I'll take a minute to introduce myself, and I'm your county planner. I've been in this role for 2 weeks now. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I gotta pretend I went to Juilliard and enunciate to the back row. How's that? Much better. That's my Eric Church voice. So my wife and I are both from Yancey County, although I wasn't living here when Helene hit. We were in the process of moving back and retiring here. And like many, when it hit, we had family that were cut off and we came running from Pennsylvania. got here on day 2. As soon as the King River Bridge opened, we were able to come in. I had a Starlink, and I had 500 gallons of diesel fuel, and I had 5 generators. And went to work for the county as soon as we got our family squared away. They put me in charge of the donations coming in, the private donations coming into the county. Negotiated a 600,000 square foot warehouse in Mitchell County to house the donations for free. Helped negotiate the Fred's distribution center, and then set up a system where we could replenish that. On November 15th, I moved here permanently. We didn't delay that. We had home damage like many others. I have to always put the caveat out there, like so many, I wasn't as bad off as some. The county came to me and said, hey, we hear you're back, we hear you're retiring, we need to rebuild the county. Would you be willing to be the county planner? So it was the shortest retirement in history. I said yes, because I care about all of you. I care about Yancey County. So I'm 2 weeks in the job. I've been really busy. My goal here tonight is to try to give you information that I think I would want to know if I were in your shoes and under your circumstances. And I don't know it all. There's information and circumstances that are quite unique, that are kind of a case-by-case basis. But I'm going to give you some case studies. I'm going to show you some things that I've assessed since I've been here. I'm working really hard with the FEMA people to try to get a process that I can just lay out. So if your circumstance is a bridge, here's the processes you have in front of you. If your circumstance is a road or a culvert, here's your options. All right. What I'm not FEMA, I'm not DOT. I'm a county planner, and so I have limited capabilities, but sharing information is something I can do, and I'll do it to the best of my ability. I'll start with really, I needed some kind of criteria to categorize things, right? I've been called out by people who claim to have really urgent situations. They've called every politician in the state and every county commissioner, and I go out there and I find out that their situation really isn't urgent. Their driveway is still paved. You can still get a fire truck to their house. They've got a culvert that was leaking underneath and eroding the driveway, but they felt like they were the most important person on the planet, and I went to see them, and they took my time away from very urgent situations. And so please don't be that guy, but I needed a way to kind of categorize things, and this is the way I think about it. So on this axis, I think about it is speed. Let's say you have a bridge. It is a small bridge. The abutments are still there, and it can be easily fixed. Okay, that's a fast one. And then need. If that bridge is cutting off 50 families from fire trucks and ambulances, that's an urgent need. If there's somebody in that area that is health issues, serious health issues, that requires immediate medical attention, that's a high need. If it's a high need, but it's slow, let's say it's a $500,000 bridge that has to be built, and that's something I can't do quickly, or the county, or FEMA, or anybody can do quickly. That's kind of a category 2. If it's a fast bridge, but it's only one, sorry. If it's a small bridge that needs to be fixed, or road, or culvert, and there's only one family that lives there, then that is a lesser need than multifamily. If it's a vacation home, and it's only one person, and it's a very expensive long-term project, that goes to the bottom of the pile, unfortunately. Doesn't mean we don't like our people that vacation here, doesn't mean they don't pay their property taxes, but you gotta come up with a way to sort through this, okay? That's the way I think about it. Okay, if your bridge is out, this is important information you'll need to know. There's a couple permits you have to get to fix your bridge. The first is a bridge construction permit. This is Mr. England. He's the county inspector here. And that's the first permit you'll have to get. That permit requires you to get some structural engineering. He is not a bridge engineer, so he needs an engineer to tell him and certify that what you're about to build is structurally sound and it meets the requirements. Okay? We had a lot of what I'll call damming. So a bridge, the first bridge hits the debris, it creates a dam. The dam builds up pressure, takes out that bridge. That slug of debris goes downstream, takes out the next bridge, and the next bridge, and the next bridge, and so on. And you guys have seen it, I know you have. So we need to make sure that they're structurally sound. The second permit you need is a floodplain permit. Okay? This is in a packet. There's a bridge construction package you can get from John's office, right? There is a state requirement by the state fire marshal. If you're building a new bridge, where a bridge did not exist before, it has to be 20 feet wide, and it has to hold 40,000 pounds. Okay? That is a state fire marshal requirement. That requirement is there so a fire truck can go in while people are evacuating out. Okay? Most all of these bridges that we're talking about are not that. They're an existing bridge that's being replaced or repaired. Right? In that case, it's a minimum of 10 feet, 20,000 pounds. And so a fire truck or an ambulance can get across it. Okay? There are two studies that are required that are coming from environmental engineering. Okay? These are also requirements for FEMA to reimburse. So these studies have to be done, or an environmental engineer with a PE stamp, a professional engineer, has to say the study is not necessary. Okay? The hydrology and hydraulic study, this is based on the floodplain maps that were in existence prior to the flood. If they have not been updated, quite often those have to be updated before that study can be done. Okay? And this is where it gets a bit interesting. So I'll use Cattail Creek, for example. Who's from Cattail Creek? Okay. Hey, Vic. The maps in Cattail Creek were last updated in 1981. So there's a good chance in order to do the H&H study, we need to update those maps for the whole of Cattail Creek. And it doesn't make sense. Cattail Creek probably has the most bridges out on any one little section of stream over that distance. They were hit really hard, right? It doesn't make sense to redo the study for each bridge that needs to be rebuilt. We're better off doing the study for the whole of Cattail Creek instead of doing it multiple times. Okay? One of the things they require is a no-rise certification that also takes a PE stamp. Both those are environmental engineers. Met with an environmental engineering firm out of Asheville today. Talked to them about this. It'll cost between $1,000 and $5,000 per study, depending on the circumstance. Okay, depending on the size of the study. So if it's a really big bridge and it's crossing the King River, that's a more expensive and extensive study than a very small stream. Right? And some of the bridges I'm going to show you in the examples, you'll understand why he says I don't need to do a study on that. I'll stamp it. Okay, that he's taking the liability that bridge is sound without the study. And I'll show you some. I'll give you some real life examples here in a second. Okay. I was in the camp at first to try to waive some of these studies in order to go faster. Okay, but then I get people with the counter argument that are calling the office saying, "Hey, my property was flooded and damaged because that guy's bridge upstream wasn't built properly. It needs to be built to all the standards that are required." And that kind of changed my mind. I came back around and said, they're right. The damming effect, taking out other bridges, there's liability here. We need to do this right. One of the problems with this study And it's unfortunate that I have to give you this news, right? Because I don't like it any better than anybody else. But the engineer's going to take 3 to 4 days to do the study. He then sends it to the state. The state has to bless the study. Now, before Helene, it was taking 3 to 4 weeks to turn around those studies. So my assumption is those studies are probably taking longer than that to get turned around. This is an area where we at the county level will lobby the state to add more resources to turn the studies around quickly. All right, we can't sit and wait a month for someone in Raleigh to approve a study for us to get going on rebuilding our bridges. That's problematic, but that's the reality of it today. The other thing that's real important, and I'll give you some examples where I'm chasing some of this, is all the landowners associated with the bridge have to sign off. Okay? I own 30 acres and a bridge that got washed away at Cattail Creek, and I sold it 3 weeks before Helene. It was just timing, luck, if you call it that. But when I bought that bridge, 9 people had to sign off. So 9 people would have to sign off on the rebuilding of that bridge. So it's very important that every property owner that's involved signs. In the documents they're going to sign, there's a right to access, and there's a hold harmless document. All right, and that's giving permission for people to come on your property and rebuild the bridge. Okay, so those are 2 documents, 2 legal documents that are required: right to access and hold harmless. The H&H study and the no rise certification are requirements for FEMA reimbursement as well. So it's not just something that the county inspectors require, it's something that FEMA requires to reimburse. They want to know that the money that they're giving you is being spent on structurally sound items. Okay, so this is the document that FEMA and the county will be looking for. I know it's hard to read. They have a category here for the H&H studies. They have a category here for the no-rise studies. Under every circumstance, the no-rise certification is required. The H&H study may not be required if you're building back a bridge of like kind. So if what was there, you're rebuilding it just as it was, and the engineer says, yes, we don't have to do that, I'll show you some examples, then the study does not apply. If there's no increase in size or change in materials, now the increase in size limitation is very important right now because a lot of our streets are wider. So what might have been a 20-foot bridge before may end up being a 40-foot bridge now. That's a change in size, and that will trigger the study. If there's any addition in armory, head wall, wing walls, aprons, riprap, or edges. So this is an important document. You can find it online. It's called the DR 4827-North Carolina H&H Study Requirements. Okay, I'm going to show you some case studies. So these are areas I went out in the last 2 weeks and personally inspected. This is an individual who's 76, living alone, has a real health issue, and is cut off. This is not a bridge. This was a road, a culvert that washed out. She claimed that she had a right-of-way access to this, but she couldn't find her deed, so I went out and researched her deed. She did have a 12-foot right-of-way across the property. I pulled it up on GIS. And, it turns out she does not own that property, but she has a right-of-way easement across the property. So now I have to track down this landowner, the other landowner, and that person has to sign off on a right access, give us right of access and a hold harmless to do the work. Right? So That story's going to play out time and time again throughout the county, and everybody needs to be aware of it. I'll go back just a second. The estimate to fix this is $33,000. There's one estimate, $37,000 was another. And I want to explain some of the nuances to this because it's very important. We can go in under public assistance. The county can go in and say she has no emergency access, and we're going to petition FEMA for the $40,000 to fix this. The engineer would sign off and not require the H&H study if we built it back the way it is. Okay? But the truth of the matter is this needs to be a larger culvert so this doesn't happen again to mitigate this problem going forward. It will trigger an H&H study, which are now taking a month's timeline to get those addressed at the state level. So we're kind of in that position of, do you build it back the way it is to do it fast, or do you wait and risk emergencies to build it right? Okay, and that's the only way we can get FEMA funding. So this gets complicated quick. You really want to do the right thing, but what is the right thing? Is the right thing to do it fast, or is the right thing to do it right? Right? And there's going to be multiple circumstances of this that play out. Okay, I'm going to talk about Cattail Creek. I spent a lot of time up there over the last 2 weeks. I'm going to talk about Cattail Creek. If you go up and go to the left, and Cattail Creek, if you go up and go to the right. All right? If you go to the left, there are 2 bridges out that have a community cut off. One, I call this one the Holy Hell Bridge because it's a 100-yard debris field. The road bed now sits probably 40 feet above the river. Very expensive, tough project. Really hard to get equipment in there. You'd have to rebuild North Fork Road to get some of the machines in there to get it out. If you go to the upper bridge that's out, this is a much more doable project. This is North Star Road Bridge. And this is one of those small bridges that's easy to fix. You can do it in like kind. And I talked to the engineer and he would stamp it without having to do the H&H study. So we will go after fixing this bridge under the public assistance program to give access, emergency access to the whole group that's cut off up there. Okay, this is the right side of Cattail Creek. There's 3 bridges out in the mudslide, and this has the most people cut off. One bridge is called the Mighty Mouse Bridge. That bridge did not go down. It's actually still there, and it's actually a repairable bridge. The Cold Spring Bridge is completely gone. The Oval Road Bridge is completely gone. And there's a mudslide that's blocking the road off of Tennessee. So, my proposal is to go in under public assistance, the county repair this bridge, and the county repair the road where the mudslide is, and that'll give emergency access. I will say this gets complex as far as funding for these different things. Those can be done through the county, I think, under emergency access. We'll see what the cost is to repair the bridge. If it's over $40,000, we'll have to submit for special approval from FEMA and see if we get it. They talked about how FEMA will not reimburse for individual assistance to vacation homes, to homeowners associations, but will to private individuals. Okay. Cattail Creek is a lot of all that. There's sections of Cattail Creek that have homeowners associations, that have second vacation homes, that have private individuals. Right. This is where the county, under individual assistance, really isn't involved. This is where the people that live up there that apply for individual assistance for FEMA will have to band together and determine how much money they're going to put in to fix their bridges outside of the ones that we would do for emergency access. Our responsibility stops at the emergency access. And so, this is where you got community leaders that can talk to each other and determine how that's going to happen. Now, it gets it can be very complex. So FEMA will reimburse up to $42,500. That's the maximum amount, and that's for home road bridge. So let's say you got Joe. Joe's house is damaged, his road's damaged, and he uses this bridge, and he gets the $42,500. You got Betty. Betty's home and road is fine, but she uses this bridge also. A lot of Joe's FEMA money is going to get eaten up working on his house and his road. He's not going to have as much to give on the bridge as, say, Betty would. Okay? Now, you're not going to know how much Joe got or how much Betty got. All right? And that's where you got to be good neighbors and good citizens and work together and really determine what's fair and honest. Because the county can't come in and referee those fights. Okay? I'm just being honest with you, right? Transparent. Major private bridge projects. This is Snake Bipolar off 19W. Bridge is gone. 3 homes completely cut off. No emergency access. The river is now much wider than it was. The road that led down to the bridge is gone. So that is a very, very expensive project. And it's one that FEMA is not going to reimburse that amount of money. So it's going to take individual assistance, it's going to take donations, it's going to take everything that we can throw at it if they're going to get a bridge back across that. It requires all those studies. Our big rivers, Kane, South Toe, North Toe, all the big rivers, I wouldn't put a bridge on the big rivers without all the studies. I think it's just an imperative. So I really feel for these people and doing my best to help them. I do have some good news on some stuff from some of the charitable organizations I'll share in just a second. But this is a major, major project. The Hat Creek Bridge at Highway 80. You know, this bridge really needs to be raised. There's quite a bit of families back in here. They are coming off Hannah Branch, but that's kind of treacherous as well. But this is a major project. And this is one that I think needs to be built back right, raised. You'd have to do an engineering study to see if the abutments are still sound, if you use the same abutments that are there already. But again, I want to help these people as much as I can, but I'm limited in what I can do on something of this size and scale. Easier bridges that could fall under public assistance. Maple Way. These look very similar, right? This is Maple Way, this is Molly Drive. That's right off Highway 80, right behind Michael School. This one's up Upper Browns Creek Road. This one's Price's Creek. So these are smaller bridges that fit the criteria that can really help. Public assistance can help build these back. There is a program that we submitted a bunch of these type bridges to. Her name's Tulsi Gabbard. She was one of Trump's cabinet picks. She had ties to the area. Her family's from Hawaii. Her sister is offered to build 5 private bridges of this nature. They had criteria to it: multifamily cutoff, less than 50 feet. So we submitted bridges like this to the program, and they're going to pick 5. So, you know, those may be bridges that fall into that program because they fit the criteria. Okay, and this is my contact information. So, you know, everybody in the county has first name, dot, last name. So it's Chris dot Sigmund. My last name is spelled S-I-G-M-O-N at Yancey County, NC.gov. A couple things. FEMA had a list of everyone here who submitted for bridge, road, culvert type projects. We petitioned to get that information, and it was taking a long time, and I get that because not everybody wants the private information. The government can just hand it out or hand it over to the county. So we created our own portal. You guys, many of you have been signing up in that portal. It jumped a lot. A week and a half ago, it was like 80. Yesterday, it was 234. There was a lot of redundancy as I go through the list, like Cattail Creek's probably 30% of people who have put in, as an example. Last night, FEMA did release us that list. So we were 2 weeks in it, but we got it. So we now know of you who has applied. And we're trying to go through and assess the highest need, those category 1 areas that I mentioned in the first slide. Okay? So that's very helpful for me. It was kind of good that we hit Cattail Creek because that does have the most people cut off based on the list. But there's other parts of the county I haven't gotten to yet, and we're gonna go just as fast as we can. Okay, I said some good news. I did reach out to some areas first. The gentleman's name is Luther Harrison, and he's it's a benefit to us because Luther's from Boone, lives in Boone, so he's local. He saw this. His mountain people too are hurting. And told him that I saw a shortfall in funding for private bridges, that FEMA just wasn't going to be able to cover all the costs, and that we needed charities to kick in. He called me back that night and said, okay, Chris, we're going to do a grant program up to $50,000 per bridge above what FEMA won't kick in. So that's new news. God bless him. And Samaritan's Purse. Now they're putting together how they're going to administer that program. Right? It's one thing to say it, give us that commitment, so I'll take it. But then there's going to be a process, just like everything else. So that's really all I had to give today. 2 weeks in, so I'll be a little smarter next week. I'm going through the list for all of you who applied, both to FEMA and on the county portal, and we'll take it by priority. Most people cut off, most urgent. We'll go see those bridges and do exactly what we're doing here. The next step is lining up a list of engineers, environmental engineers, bridge engineers, and then construction firms that meet the criteria to be able to do this work. You know, I would tell you, if you have anybody come out to your property and do work, you need to make sure they're insured. Most contractors are required to carry $1 million insurance policy as a COI, certificate of insurance. You want that. You don't want somebody getting hurt on your property and then not having enough insurance and you get called, into a lawsuit or something of that nature. So you want good, reputable people doing the work. We're putting together our total list. We do want to use all the local contractors that we can that meet that criteria. With that, I'm done. I'm gonna give you guys a chance to ask questions and go through the ones that were handed in. And if I can, okay, I'm gonna let Jeff, our emergency manager, speak too. So bear with me.
Question on each part.
I'm going to give out just a little bit more information here while you guys are filling out the questions. And maybe some of the information I'm going to give out might answer a question. A lot of what I'm going to say is just kind of regurgitation of what Chris said, but I might say it a different way and it might kind of clear something up. All right, there's two different pieces to this, okay? There's two different pieces to this. You got, can I hold this thing so much later? How about this? Is that better? I used to be a drill sergeant. I mean, I could use my drill sergeant voice, but
Do it.
you know, make people mad and not feelings. All right, so public assistance and individual assistance, two different programs that we're using. Public assistance is what you need if a fire truck cannot get to your house. Show of hands. How many people in here, without a doubt, a fire truck cannot get to your house? before you leave, I need your number. I probably already have it, but this is just gonna highlight it and help me get to that a little bit quicker. All the permitting and studies and all that stuff that Chris was talking about, that does not pertain to you. The county, because it's a county program, will be handling all that. If you are building your own bridge, then that's where you come in and you're responsible for getting the permits and the studies and all this good stuff, okay? Everything that we have said concerning public assistance and individual assistance for bridges and culverts also applies to roads and driveways. So if your road was completely washed out and it's got a rut in it up to your hip, fire truck ain't getting up there, okay? That's where we can come in. And those are quick, simple, easy fixes. John, tell me if I'm speaking out of turn. That doesn't really require permits, right? Okay. So that's something simple. It's just grading it out, bringing in some gravel, smoothing it out, and you're back in business. Okay? Might be a little bit different if it comes to paving and all that stuff. We'll cross that when we get to it. If you have damage, Chris kind of touched on this. If you have damage to your bridge, culvert, road, driveway, but you don't have damage to your home, I went through the whole application process as well, and they told me, the first big statement that they give is everything that you're getting ready to tell me absolutely true under penalty of perjury, blah, 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 okay? If I don't have damage to my house, my brain says, do not say you got damage to your house. Change. FEMA says, if you have damage to your bridge, but not your house, tell them you have damage to your house. That's the only thing that's going to trigger an inspector coming out there and taking a look at it. Because he's going to get there, and he's going to go, oh crap, I can't inspect the house because there's not a bridge there. I can't get up the driveway. That triggers it, and we'll get somebody out there to take a look at it. Okay. This is a possibility. This is not a definite. This is not a maybe. This is a possibility. During Tropical Storm Fred, did anybody have a road, bridge, culvert, driveway repaired after Tropical Storm Fred? Okay. A couple of folks in here. All right. That program, that's a state program. Doesn't have anything to do with FEMA. If, big capital I, capital F, if that program gets funded, then the Office of State Budget Management through the state of North Carolina will come in and do permanent repairs to your bridges. It's a roll of the dice, okay? If you make those permanent repairs now, if a fire truck can get to your house, but you choose, take pictures. Please, Lord have mercy, take pictures. Keep all your receipts. If you choose to make those repairs now, you may, capital M, capital A, capital Y, you may get reimbursed by the state of North Carolina if that program gets funded. The problem is, state of North Carolina moves slower than I do. After Tropical Storm Fred, it was like 6 or 8 months before they finally got their head out of the tail and said, oh, these people need some help. So it might come into play. Again, that's for permanent repairs to your bridges. The big focus right now, my focus as emergency management, is to make sure that an ambulance or a fire truck can get to your house and we can get you out. Is anybody in here, if you haven't, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. If you have not completed an application, please go do that. If you don't do that application, you ain't getting no help. Plain and simple. It just, there's no way around it. I had someone, hello? FEMA. You have to do a FEMA application. Yep. totally lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Yeah, there you go. I'll tell you, man, my mind right now, I had a pack of crackers and a Diet Coke for supper just then. It didn't take it. I have no idea what it was. You want to talk about the Red Cross? Okay. So she's gonna tell about a program through the Red Cross. I've also got, there's Lord Ted, are you here? Ted's not here. It's a gentleman named Ted Brunner out of Mars Hill. We've got some more of these flyers up here. He's given some flyers with these QR codes on it that you can go talk to them about getting your bridges repaired. If you're doing the public assistance, you don't have to worry about going and contacting contractors and all that stuff. We're taking care of all that. Mainly Chris is taking care of all that. If it's individual, you will need contractors. Please be cautious of who you get. Please do not give them money up front. We've already had this scamming garbage going on in our county. Don't give people money up front, because chances are you're not going to see them again. Yes, ma'am. So we don't have that right now, but that is something good to think about. On the other hand, we do have a list of contractors that are listed on the county website that are trusted contractors that the county has used in the past. If you're a contractor in here and you would like to be considered for that program, let us know. Okay, we'll get your name and information out there. Where is that? It's on the county website. Right. And there's not much, well. April is our PIO. She's the communication expert.
So we had bulletin boards and signs all out in the community that we were updating that had information on it for that exact reason. We had that. We also have signs. There's a resource guide that has a QR code. If you guys can tell me areas where these people need it, just let me know so I can get it to them. You know, I don't know what I don't know, right? So if there's an area that you say, hey, they're not getting the information they need, because I hand deliver stuff to people, and I hand deliver stuff and put it on those bulletin boards myself, you know. And that resource guide that we have on the website, that takes you to anything that you have. So if you come into town, there's QR codes around. I put one at Ingalls, there's one on the town center. But if you come into town, always, you know, take the time to log on to the Yancey County government website. There's Helene resources there. It's got some updates and some information that you can grab off there that gives you the list.
Where are the bulletin boards?
When you're looking for, they were out in the communities with the fire departments. Like B-Log had one at their laundry station. B-Log had one. West Yancey had it at their fire department. Sacred Heart had it for town. They've been dispersed all over. Where there was a comfort station, there was a bulletin board. And again, it's at B-Log. It's a B-Log school, yes. And then I gave one to the girl down at Little Creek. I gave her the information for whenever I was down there at Little Creek for that. Yep. So you guys just tell me, you know, write it. If you got this card, you say, hey, I need information here, write it down, I'll make it happen, okay?
Does FEMA have a local office right here where we can go and give them our name?
Yeah, so that's the DRC. That's the it's the DRC. It's beside Fred's, and it's beside Fred's.
DRC?
It's Disaster Recovery Center.
Right next to Fred's?
Right next to Fred's. Yep, and they're open Monday through Friday.
9 to 6, Monday through Friday, Saturday, 8 to 6, Monday through Friday, Saturday, 9 to 2.
We put on that list that we have a bridge and they can't get to our house.
So that's two different things, so.
Well, the one you talked about, well, we gotta get on that list.
There's the county list, and then there's registering for assistance through FEMA. So there's kind of two different things.
Well, the last thing you spoke of before you gave her the mic, you said you gotta get on the list or you're not gonna get any help. Which is that the county or the people? What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, he was saying you have to register with FEMA for the individual assistance program.
And that I can do is replaced by Fred.
Correct,
Okay.
correct, yeah. There's other assistance programs, it's not only FEMA, so I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, so we're, sorry, I'm not trying to cut people off, but we have questions that people have already submitted, and it's already almost 7 o'clock. So we're gonna try to get through these questions. If you have follow-up stuff that you need, what I want you to do for me, if you have something and I can try to find an answer for it, I'm adding a lot to this, but put your name on the card, put your question on the card, and your contact information. And I will do the best I can to get you what you need. I can't promise you anything, but I promise you I'm gonna try. Okay? So with that, we're gonna try to knock these questions out for everybody. So, Chris is gonna address the questions he had, okay?
All right. Some questions about roads and culverts. Everything applies that I've talked about except don't need the engineers, don't need the engineering studies, and there's not a permit requirement. Okay? But let me get this out there, because this is very important. Everybody should apply for individual assistance. It will not preclude you from the public play. So, in other words, if you're cut off from emergency services and you apply for individual assistance through FEMA, and we come out and say, we're going to apply for public assistance because you're cut off and we're going to try to get FEMA to reimburse that cost, the fact that you apply for individual does not preclude that. So it's not an either or, okay? So everybody should apply for individual assistance. This is a good one. This came up in the county commissioners meeting last night. You know, where do I haul off if I want to repair it myself? We're a bit overloaded at the county landfill. And to give you scale and scope, normally we take in 85 tons of material a day at the landfill. We're taking in 250 tons a day right now. So we're really overloaded. We're looking for a site, a 10 to 15 acre site that's in a central location where you, the citizens, can come and bring your debris. And then SDR, the company we contracted to clear the debris on the right-of-ways, will sort it. Right now, that debris is going to multiple locations. Some of it, the veggie, I'll call it the veggie debris, is going to Tennessee. All metal is going to the metal yard out in Nashville. And then the other debris that's left is going to Waynesville. So it's all leaving here. It goes to our landfill and then gets taken out. But we need a site for people to bring their debris, and then we'll sort it and haul it off. So we're working on that. It's a problem. We got to address it. So that's a good question. You can talk to us. Yeah, you can call me. Man, I'm with you, right? There's some sites like, the rec park, for example, would be a great central location. It's already taking debris. But when we bought that, the gentleman who sold it to us put in our deed that we couldn't do stuff like that, so we can't use it, right? So we'd love to talk to you.
One clarification on what you said about, it is not a question, I'm not agreeing with it. Unless they change it, you said if you didn't affect your house, tell me that you're in it, they'll come to your debris, will you give them there?
Yeah, so it's a very important thing that's been like misinformation or disinformation. You have to check that your home was damaged on your FEMA application, whether it is or not. So if you're getting your road fixed or your bridge fixed, you still have to check that you had home damage. And that's a bit confusing. And I know it tells that signature line, we have to say, I swear everything in here is true. But that is a nuance to this. I've seen people back up that didn't do that, who were trying to get the road and culvert fixed.
Unless they change it, that is not working for us. That being the man came out and said, it didn't affect your house, we didn't arrest you.
You answer that? Yeah.
You're lying, and then when they come out, they say, well, your house is fine. Put it on the record.
When you answer the question on the application, yes, we do ask what's your home damage, you may say no. But we also ask you, or is your home accessible? Your home is not accessible if you can't get to it. So if you did not answer that correctly, that is the reason why the inspector may say that they're unable to inspect for that particular that you need, because the application does not state that. So you have to make sure that the person that is asking the questions is understanding what they are asking you, so that they can repeat the questions and ask you the questions again for those who have not registered. But for those who have registered, you can make contact with either the helpline number that I gave, or you can visit one of the disaster recovery centers and update your registration information. Oh, and also the table in the back with the DSA.
Hey, can you throw your hand up? DSA guys, can you throw your hand up?
Can the DSA guys please raise their hand?
Two gentlemen with their hands up are with DSA. Answering questions, right?
Okay, the question is, how do we know what status we are? 1, 2, 3, or 4? I'll tell you. I'll be happy to tell you. Just come to me and I'll tell you that assessment. If a bridge is being addressed, but the road has to be addressed also, is that considered in the program? Yes. The answer is yes. What's a PE stamp? So a professional engineer went to school, with the engineering school, passed an extensive test, and they're awarded a PE stamp. And that means every time they use that stamp, they're certifying that whatever they're stamping is right to code or to specification. So they're putting their stamp on the line when they say that, and it's a requirement. What happens a lot of times, it takes different types of engineers to do different things. I'm talking about structural engineers, environmental engineers. We're not experts in all those fields, so we count on that PE stamp to tell us that it's right, and that's why they make it a requirement. The group I spoke to most recently is Headwater Engineering in Asheville. The guy's name is Andrew Bick. He's an environmental engineer that can do the H&H studies, and he can do the no-rise certifications. Headwater.
Hire an engineer for all these individuals that are not qualified to state level repair. It is a big expense to understand. We have enough people here, anyway, we get most of this through you, and pull an engineer team for a week to handle everybody when they're out there. We want to work with them on a contract form through the county as well.
Yeah, thank you, dude. It's a great question. I'm working on a list of qualified engineers. It's basically about pooling the needs of many into engineering services. Is there a way to get multiple people involved with an engineering group that can serve many? Everybody's got the same problem, right? It's right. So I'm putting together a list of both environmental and bridge and structural engineers that we can use. I want to make sure they're good and qualified, vetting them. But I'm pulling together that list.
So another one that's well, we're on that, we've dealt with Front Springs, tributaries, Laura Major, maybe.
Yep. Yeah, I will say there's one other portion of my job I'm doing right now that I'm focused on, and it's a lesser extent, probably 15% of my time, and that's the restabilization of the plantings for our streams and rivers. So we need to stabilize our banks, we need to use native species, we want to use stuff that's beneficial to reestablish trout.
If everybody can hold your side conversations to a minimum, there are people who are trying to listen to the answers, but we can't hear. And if you need to meet with Jeff just to give just the information, please just give me your card. If you need to get on the list that you don't have access, just give me your card. But just, there are people still trying to listen to the answers, so please keep the side conversations to a minimum.
Yes, so, right now, I had a big win this week. We got Trout Unlimited on board to be a part of that program. We also have a place in Virginia that's part of the Virginia Department of Natural Resources that's willing to grow river cane for us to help us stabilize. And then I'm reaching out to our farmers and some of the greenhouses that were devastated to see if we can get them to grow it. I think the program only works if we can come up with funding for the plantings so that private landowners don't have to buy it. And if we can do that, then we can use volunteers, and we can go out and plant this and re-stabilize and grow our rivers and streams back. We're gonna have a problem with the streams being shallow, which means they're gonna be warmer, which isn't great for trout, right? Because the rivers are wider right now, so that's a problem, and that's another thing I'm working on. Question is, are the people that can't mill it, the volunteers that can't mill it, insured? My answer is probably not. Before I would ask that question before I would let them do work on your property. I would ask that question. Yeah, I do not know that answer, but it's a question that the individual landowner needs to ask before they let somebody build on their property. I have a cousin who's a judge in Kentucky, and she'll tell you that there's some pretty bad laws out there. So if you don't like them, don't be mad at her for forcing you to change the laws. Right? That's true.
So I got several questions here. I'm going to go through them. Some of them are kind of duplicative on topic. I'll address one. In order to get support from public assistance, does the county have to coordinate the bridge construction? Okay. Public assistance is the program that the county or the town applies for. Same thing for houses of worship. They can also apply for public assistance. That is where they incur the bill and then come back to FEMA for reimbursement. So that's the municipality. Public assistance is the municipality, not individuals. There's a follow-on question that says, can the residents coordinate the construction? If the residents want to apply through the individual assistance process and use their money and combine it to coordinate the construction, you can do it that way too. So it could be the individual assistance program, it could be the public assistance program, or it could be some of those nonprofit organizations that are in the community. Private roads and bridges, if a private road or bridge is owned by a homeowners association, does it disqualify for FEMA aid for road repairs to private primary properties? So homeowners association, with FEMA, it always comes back to who owns the property. Does the homeowner association own the property? No. So it's going to be the collective individuals within that homeowners association. So they could register for individual assistance, pool their money together, coordinate their funds together to address the road and bridge. Sir?
On the public assistance program, this runs through the county, correct? Yes. Where do these bids come from? Is it federal money? How do we bid on these jobs?
You can go to sams.gov.
Correct. Is this federal or local?
So sams.gov is the federal procurement site. So if you're bidding on something like that. However, I will tell you, FEMA is not the one that's going to do the construction. That's all through the county. So the procurement process comes through the county, right? And they have to follow their regulations to get reimbursed by FEMA. So it's not, it's a process on that end too. I need like 4 more minutes. Question. The individual went to the DRC and the library twice. The FEMA workers told me they could not explain the questions. Please give us another chance, whoever this is. If you want to talk to these gentlemen, if not, please come over to Fred's to the Disaster Recovery Center, and then come and talk to me too here after this. 2 miles of private roads, 45 homes. Do we all have to file for assistance or just one? Again, FEMA's dealing with you individually or your property. So if there's 45 private residents and the primary residents, get them together, you can pool your money together, you can build one hell of a bridge. So that's the solution there. Yes, it's not one person for one bridge. You can file individually and pool that together. You can keep all your documentation together, and then that can all go together. You can link your cases together when the time comes to get reimbursed. I would take it up to the DRC and have that conversation face to face rather than the website. I'm a face to face person. Website's not a great thing for me. Can we pool and hire an engineer firm as a community? Yes, you can, clearly. How many dwellings on a private road equal eligibility for DOT public road? It's a math problem.
Not the magic number, I don't know that. Not the magic number. You got a lot of big players, spend a lot of money to qualify for that.
Okay. Getting quotes takes time and companies are backed up. This is important, this is huge. If we start the application before January 7th, but quotes come later, is that okay, or will we miss the deadline? The deadline is for registration into the program. It's not closure, it's not end game, it's not, everybody goes dark on January 7th. That's you registering for the program. When is FEMA removing the primary residence requirement? There's a couple things in here. FEMA is focused on your one house, the primary residence. The vacation home, the second home, the home in Bermuda, they're focused on one residence. They're focused on your safety, security, and this is a lot of our programs. Our programs are focused on trying to get you through the emergency at hand. And so the focus is the primary residence. And that's why they're asking you, is this your primary residence? And if you say no, that is not it. So primary residence is key. That's not going to change. Here's another one. Not all of the homes on our private road are primary residences. How will this be handled? So the owners of those other properties that don't live in the community still can be brought into the conversation. The FEMA benefits are going to be to the primary residents and the primary owners of those residents. So as Chris mentioned it, you could have a situation where there's 10 residents on the up the hill, 3 of them are primary, 2 of them are secondary, Airbnbs. FEMA's worried about the primary owner and your home. When is FEMA going to increase the dollar amount over 42K? So there's a maximum amount that FEMA is set. It is set by us every fiscal year, okay? We're talking about 42K, 425. That was set last fiscal year. That's not gonna elevate, okay? What I will tell you is if you got a letter from FEMA, and we're awarded grant money from FEMA, and it's less than what you think, you were expected because of repairs, appeal, send an appeal. You've got a letter that told you how you can appeal, provide your cost estimates, the costs that you incurred, and take the time to file an appeal, and you might see more benefits. Do not hesitate to appeal, and do not hesitate to register for assistance. We've talked a lot about folks on lists. I know there are folks in the community who have not applied for assistance. That's what it's there for. Please take advantage of it and please spread the news. And if somebody applied and got a letter from FEMA and stopped and gave up, please have them take that letter to the DRC and have a discussion and try to move the ball forward and see what we can do on the assistance side. A couple more. If we began work for emergency access, can we still get assistance? Yes. Keep your receipts. Keep your receipts and take pictures. Document everything you're doing throughout this entire process. How do I update my FEMA application? You can do it online, but again, I'm going to, for the 5th time, and I'll say it until they put me in the grave, go talk to an individual at the Disaster Recovery Center and have that conversation. And there's no wrong question. Give them every question you got. explain the situation, so the discussion about, I checked, no damage to my home, but I didn't check that my home was accessible. Explain the situation to them. I will tell you that a lot of times, I've done this for a while, folks will register for assistance literally the day after the disaster, the worst day of their life, and you're not processing things clearly. And don't be afraid to say, I registered 2 weeks later. Yeah, I had power at that time, or my house was fine, but it was damaged. Go have those conversations, and again, don't be afraid to ask questions. If our application is in by the deadline, but the contractor estimates are not in yet, or do they have to finish it? No, you don't have to be done by the deadline. Sorry, that's a repeat question. Yeah.
This question is can I email you and find out if we're, get your advice on whether we're a candidate for public assistance program? Absolutely. Please do that. Sign up on the website too, on the county website, HMS list. When I went through this list, probably 30% of it, you can see I kind of highlighted them in pink. Those were all capital P. So it's an area we were already addressing, but I haven't been everywhere. I'm trying to get around. The lady came up just a minute ago. I have an appointment to go to Locust Creek this week, and I'm going to try to get around to everybody I can as fast as I can. This list helps though because it tells me how many people are cut off and where you are. And if I see redundancy on there, I know that there's multiple families there cut off, and that gets my attention first. If my home is currently accessible by a neighbor's bridge, is that considered emergency access? It can be. And that's the case studies I just put up there. We weren't going after every bridge in Pat Hill. We're going after one bridge on one side and one bridge on the other to allow emergency access to get in there. So if a fire truck and an ambulance can get to you from a neighbor's bridge, it means you have emergency access, right? Now, one thing Jeff's working on is where we have those situations, we have to update the 911 records, right? So if you call, then we know how to get to you. And so, but yes, it could preclude that you're not a candidate for public assistance if you've already got access. Those are my questions. If the parent owns the home here in the Yancey community, but lives elsewhere, I get it, but if it's not the owner's primary residence, this may not.
I would tell them to go to the DRC. We're getting into individual circumstances, and I said, without cases in front of the folks from the DRC. They have a lease or a deed? Are they the owner? Right. But they're rent on our form. It's going to say, are you the owner or are you renting? That's the distinction. So my primary residence is an apartment. That's not a primary residence. I'm not the owner of the apartment. So that's the kind of situation.
everybody holler out. I've spoken to Mr. Payne, Ted, you're heaven. Yeah, and so, I'll do everything I can to help them, but I don't think FEMA is going to reimburse the county to the level that's going to require police staff. I'm being honest, that's what I don't think they will. So, I'm looking at it, that's why I put it up there, I have it on the list. If there's an avenue that the county has to help you with, I'll pursue it. But I gotta know that this now, what I think is it's gonna take a little bit of all the above. It may take the county, it may take individual assistants, and it's definitely gonna take local charities. I'm sorry. I would need to understand the cost of the bridge. And I know, and it's a lot. Jeff and I both looked at it. So if we built the road down to the water, it's a large span now. It will require all the engineering studies. It will require a structural engineer design. And it's a much larger span. Probably it's going to require shoreline stabilization. So, it's like Ted and I said, it's north of, it's probably a $500,000 bridge. Permanent. Is there something that you need to do? Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, all right, so it looks like we're going down to individual questions, and I think that needs to be an individual basis for everybody. So Fred wanted to give one last bit of clarifying information, and then we're going to wrap the meeting up. I really want to thank everybody for your attendance and your concerns. Again, if you have a question for me that I can answer, put it on the card. I'm going to try my best to get it for you, okay?
So we just talked about renters, and I want to say something. FEMA does have rental assistance as part of its disaster assistance program, but not tied to the roads and bridges discussion. So let me just clarify that. All right, thanks.
Thank you.